I love both digital and traditional mediums, but whenever I try to pick my favorite, I can't choose. So today I'm going to be drawing the same thing both digitally and traditionally to see which one's superior. Or at least which one I like best. I didn't really know what to do at first, so I did a couple of sketches. I ended up choosing this one. My plan is drawing the liner on the iPad first, so it will be the actual liner for the digital version, but I'm going to trace it and use fine liners for the liner for the traditional version. I decided to draw this random girl because I don't usually draw girls and I often draw fan art, so I wanted to do something different. I also did this because the traditional material I plan on using is alcohol markers, and I don't usually use magenta, dark blue, and green, so it would be a fun opportunity of using certain colors I don't usually use. One regret I have about this drawing is the fact that I drew her pose like that. She's supposed to be leaning with her hand on her face, but the hand looks a little bad. I wanted to show her nails because I plan on painting them later, but the hand looks a little weird. I mean, look at the thumb. And the pose, yeah, she's supposed to be leaning, but I didn't feel like drawing the rest of her back. It looks a little weird. When drawing on the iPad, I have the tendency of zooming in too much, so I'm trying to fix that. Because of this, a couple of lines ended up looking a little... and this might be a controversial take, liner is not as important as you think it is. What I mean by this is, after you're done coloring, most likely everyone is going to focus on the coloring and not if certain lines are shaky. Okay, the digital liner is done, so now let's print it for the liner for the traditional piece. I'm going to be using these Copic fine liners because they're smudge proof and are meant to be used with alcohol markers. I love doing the liner with these things. It's so satisfying. I mean, look at that line. Since I'm going to be using alcohol markers, I picked this paper, which is meant to be used with alcohol markers, but it's a little too thin and I have sweaty hands, and that's a recipe for disaster, so I put on these gloves, which look kind of funny, and I don't know, they make me feel important, like I'm some kind of doctor and about to make some special procedure of some sorts. I kept most of the footage of me doing the traditional liner because of two reasons. Number one, since you already saw me doing the digital liner, I thought it would be a little redundant. And reason number two, my camera thought my gloves were a lot more interesting than the drawing, so they focused on them and most of the footage was out of focus. So here's my liner and here are all of my colors. Let's start coloring, shall we? I started with her hand because I didn't like it, so I didn't mind if I ruined it, which kinda happened. I thought the liner was dry, but clearly isn't. Smudge proof. Anyway, let's keep going. I chose my lightest skin color for the base of her skin and a slightly darker and more saturated color for the shading. I didn't really know what to do for her hand, so yeah, I colored the palm kinda poorly and then abandoned it. Now you can see why I regretted drawing this hand now, don't you? I kept going. I added a shadow on her neck and torso, then to the face. When coloring with markers, I don't usually use a base tone. I leave the skin pasty white and add blush to the cheeks, nose, ears, or whatever skin is showing, and then add shadows. I love working on the skin because it makes the character look a lot more lively, I guess, and yeah, I think it's fun. After I was done with the skin, I started shading the hair. I picked a darker color to then blend it with a lighter color. For the most part, I shaded in a kind of gradient, in a way, like dark, light, white, light, and dark again. So the highlights are white instead of being a lighter version of the base tone. But for this drawing, I messed up a little bit. I used a light pink in the parts that were supposed to be white, so I just kept going to pretend everything was intentional and I didn't mess up. Speaking of messing up, I chose a dark color to add a little bit of shading in the back of the hair, but the color I picked was a little too dark and yeah, mistakes happened. After that, I started shading her skirt. What? I meant shirt. It's supposed to be white with red stripes, so I'm shading it with a very light gray and I'm blending it with her skin tone to make this kind of cool effect of shading a white object with both cool and warm colors. As I told you earlier, I wanted to use green and blue, but I couldn't decide which one to use. So I did what I usually do when I can't decide which color to use. I gave her heterochromia. So her right eye, which is our left, is this pretty like turquoise-ish, greenish color, and the other is dark blue. At this point, I realized that I kind of messed up because I wanted to make her eyes a little bit more shiny, but since I added this dark color was a little tricky. I tried to use a lighter blue on top, but I chose the wrong blue, which was a little darker than what I intended to use. So trying to fix that, I picked the right blue and tried to lift that, and that didn't really work, but at least I tried. For the most part, when shading eyes with alcohol markers, I pick a dark color, then a middle color, and a light color, and blend them in that order. But this time, I didn't choose a lighter color to blend with the medium tone, so I left the bottom white. Since there's not going to be that much blue in this picture, I colored her bracelet blue, and to make things a little bit, I guess, more fair, I colored her nails green, well, I guess turquoise. It was time to color the eyelashes, so I picked a light and dark brown. Not gonna lie, I did this because I was a little lazy and didn't feel like going to another place to pick the right colors. I chose brown because of the liner, right? So I thought it wouldn't look too bad, but I was wrong. So I tried to correct this by using the middle tone I used on her hair on the eyelashes to kind of fix it in a way. It didn't really work, but I guess it looks a lot better. The last thing left to do was the stripes on her shirt. I didn't give it much thought and it really shows. They don't look really good now, do they? Okay, here's the finished marker picture. There's a couple of things I don't like this smudged finger and these mistakes, but all in all, it's okay, I think. Now let's see the digital version. Okay, now I'm here on the iPad. Let's start coloring them. I started by adding the base colors, but I didn't like how it looked with black line art, so I changed it. After that, I started blushing and shading the skin. Same as the other picture, I started by shading the hand. I tried to make it look okay, but ended up abandoning it. And moving on to other parts I liked shading better. Like the face, I added shadows with the lasso tool and then cleaned them up with a brush. For the hair, I added shadows where I thought they would be and then erased it where I didn't want them. I kept adding strokes and then erasing them until I thought the shading looked okay.
Funny enough, I struggled with the color because I kind of forgot the exact shade I used on the traditional drawing, which was kind of weird because right after I finished that one, I started this one. Because of my struggles with the color corrections, I guess I was a little stressed out and I had a nightmare where I was really confused because I messed up. And if I remember correctly, the digital one in my dream was pink and the traditional one was orange, and I was like, how come I messed up like this? What happened? It was a little stressful in the dream, but it's hilarious now that I think about it.
The highlights on her hair, I used a odd layer and did the same thing I did for the shading. I added them where I thought they would be and then erased them until I thought they looked okay. In her shirt, I used a light blue and a light purple to, in a way, imitate what I did in the traditional one, like adding both cool and warm shading. And for the shadows, you guessed it, I did the same thing I did for the hair. For the eyes, I clipped a layer to the base color of the eyes and then started shading them with a dark color in the middle, a medium color on top and bottom, and a lighter color in the bottom. But I also wanted to add more reflections and details here and there. You may be thinking, you could have just alpha locked the layer instead of adding another one and clipping it. Here's the reason why I did that. I like clipping a layer instead of alpha locking the original, so I can use the liquify tool to fix any mistakes I may have made. I added some extra sparkles and highlights on a layer set to add to make the eyes more shiny. But then I made the same mistake I made for that traditional drawing, which was trying to make the eyelashes look more detailed and pretty. To be honest, I think I just should give up with this whole trying to make the eyelashes look pretty thing because it's clearly not my thing. I added highlights to the eyes and thought I was done, but I wasn't. I thought I could change a couple of things, but I didn't record them because I didn't think they would be big changes, but they were. It's going to be a little surprise for the final reveal, so let's see that. I really enjoyed working on both of these. There's something far more satisfying when working traditionally, but the results when working digitally are often a lot better, even for a newbie like myself. So here are both of the pictures. I have a couple of thoughts about both of them, but I don't want to ruin the video with negativity, so I'm going to show them right now. It's funny that the results are so different even though I used the same line art. I mean, I did use the liquify tool, but still the results are way too different. I think the digital one turned out a lot better, but I want to hear your opinions. Which one do you like best? Thank you very much for watching. See you in another video. Bye bye!